Hello, folks. Well, welcome back to Jack's Corner, where truth and reality have a seat at the table. Today, we really have a special treat for you. And joining us today is Alina Fernandez, the daughter of Fidel Castro, who was the former communist dictator of Cuba. If anyone has an insight into the evils of communism, it's Alina. So with that, Alina, good to see you again, and welcome to Jack's Corner. Well, Alina, thank you very much for joining us today. This is a real treat. It's just kind of surreal for me because you are the daughter of Fidel Castro. And I remember as a child putting things in my mom and dad's bomb shelter back in the 60s because we were so afraid of nuclear war, not only with Russia, but because of missiles that were going into Cuba. And so here I am all these years later talking to Fidel Castro's daughter. So let me ask you, right now you've lived in the country, what, 30 years?
Almost 40.
Okay. And, one of and so you're very familiar. I know you keep up with the news a lot in this country. And, one of the problems that we're having in this country right now is we have a youth and a new generation that never knew or understood or knew about your dad. And they really don't have much of an understanding of communism or socialism. I think the last time we talked, you said something like, well, there is no such thing as socialism, it's just communism.
Well, it's not me, it's Lenin, Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, that said that socialism is only the first step to communism. It's only it's
right.
Nothing but the first step, to be more precise.
Okay, that's good. And I do recall they were trying to give it a softer look, weren't they?
Yes, because there are social democracies that use some sort of social schemes to be in place for general health care, etc. But it's the same thing that is being done here. So.
I see. Well, back in the 60s, when this was all coming about, and then your father came into the leadership and became a dictator of Cuba. And then, of course, in 1963, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis. But tell me a little bit about what life was like back then in Cuba.
Well, pretty hectic, and you always had the feeling that you were living in some kind of general big, gigantic nut house. I perfectly remember the crisis. It happened 4 years after he took over in 1959. So I can tell you something that sounds crazy to this day, but people were enthusiastically waiting for the bomb to be dropped. And it was a massive, mobilization of the people to just support the Cuban position and the Russian position, of course, towards the United States. And so it is the context of the Cold War that was very radical and scary and irresponsible, if I may say.
So communism promised a lot of things for the Cuban people, but it didn't deliver, did it?
No, because the first thing that communists does is to expropriate possessions from individuals and corporations and decapitalize everything. So in order to invest somewhere, you need money from somewhere else. And the first step that communism does is that the states, the government, becomes the owner of everything. Every single business, from the smaller one in which you only have a shoe repair shop, from the biggest one, like, for example, a sugarcane complex in the island. And everything became ownership of the revolution, which is not even a legal entity. So
you really don't own anything.
You don't own anything. The business don't have owners, and it interrupts the chain of production. So, for example, you own a little piece of land and you grow potatoes, and you don't own that land anymore. So you're supposed to grow the potatoes because of your deep belief in the ideology. And then those potatoes will never get to the table because they need transportation from the field, they need refrigeration, they need transportation to the distribution place, etc. So all that is interrupted. And I perfectly remember that we start lacking food since the very beginning. So since 1961, Cuba had left, and I think it's going to be suspended right now from a little booklet, ration booklets. So it interrupts everything. It interrupts all what has been done to that point. That was called the revolution. But you make a revolution to implant communism.
So you basically don't get to do what you want to do. They tell you what you're going to do. They tell you where you can live. They tell you basically what profession or job you're going to do.
It can go to extremes. If you are a strong militant from the Communist Party, you're going to do whatever they tell you to do. And rebelling is not an option. You are severely repressed and violently repressed.
So, I've seen pictures from Cuba today, and the pictures I've seen, it just looks like it's burned out. It looks like something from back in the 1950s.
Well, not even back in the 1950s, because Cuba used to be the second economy in Latin America in the 50s. And we were so advanced. We were a very special, I would say, place of gathering for artists, intellectuals. I mean, we were the pearl, what is called the pearl of the Caribbean area, or the Caribbean Sea. So Cuba was a pretty good country with a very firm and notorious middle class, which is the mother of a country.
So now I understand it's just a bunch of wreckage now. It's very behind the scenes. And I read an article yesterday where they have had the 5th nationwide blackout because they don't have electricity.
No, they don't have electricity, and the public opinion makes the United States guilty. And it's absolutely true that in the last months they've been putting a lot of pressure to seek a change in the government on the oil imports of Cuba. But it's not the first time that Cuba is in blackout. We had blackouts all over, and basically it's from the 90s. Why? Because the Soviet Union fell apart, became Russia again, and stopped subsidizing Cuba. So since the moment that happened, and it happened exactly in 1989, Cuba is being, helped, if you might say, by other countries, but it's evidently that the economy never worked.
So people are living in pretty much poverty in Cuba today.
General misery.
That's terrible. So it went from the pearl of the Caribbean to what would you call it today?
Well, that's a good question. I'm bad at conceptualizing and qualifying, but really it's a ruined country. It's a burnout country. And you see buildings and electrical systems and water system can be rebuilt, but moral and inner self is going to take a lot and a lot of time, because the Cuban human being has been despised individually for so long. We've been having this for almost 70 years now. You don't exist as an individual. In communism, you're supposed to be equal. But of course, there are sorts of equality. The people that are faithful to the regime and work for the regime and are high placed in the regime don't live like the rest of the Cubans.
So you've got the elite class that live in luxury, but then the rest of them are in poverty?
Exactly, and no middle class going in between. So he's very wealthy or very well set or absolutely poor, you know. Those people hadn't had a chance to add anything to their houses. All the employments were forbidden. So you couldn't even call, I don't know, a plumber to fix your water system inside the house. Everything is prohibited. Everything has to be done by the state, and the state is very inefficient. So those people have lived in places they couldn't even fix for 70 years. It's falling apart.
So there's no middle class.
No. One of the purposes of Marxism is abolishing classes.
You know, I've been saying this on my podcast for quite some time now with regard to communism and what's happening in this country. You know, we fought communism, the United States fought communism around the world, and we've lost thousands of people, men and women in our military, fighting it to save us from that very same plight. But we've found that we're running into a problem in this country where the younger generation is finding it acceptable. And I think that the root of the problem is in our institutions of education. They're being taught and indoctrinated. What have you found?
I agree with you. It's also a notion of certain romanticism, you know, for young people to try to solve problems the way they think they're solvable, to try to make every human being equal. And it's a good feeling and it's worth to fight for. But economically, you know, the solution is not communism. The solution, as you say, for almost everything that exists in the world is education and is in the schools.
Well, yeah, the problem we have is with the teachers' unions and the curriculum that they're pushing on our children. And we've got professors in the universities that are flat out Marxists. And what upsets me in this country is that we've known this and we're paying for our children to be indoctrinated. Do you speak much about this or work with this in your organization?
I do not have an organization. I am by myself in this. Actually, it's been very dramatic in the last 2 years. I mean, you will know and you notice that institutions, educational institutions, higher education institutions are penetrated. That's their job. Their job is to expand their ideology all over. And they've been doing that silently until now. I think we are assisting to a rampage of all this indoctrination put into work. And I think that in the last 2 years, they had all their minions, you know, people that have been hiding or not, because you can find information about communist organizations, about what they do in schools, their program. You can find out that if you're looking for. So what I think that had happened is that the United States was not prepared for this you know, sudden attack.
And you've watched
my use of words is maybe not the right one.
Well, in your 40 years here, you've watched it unfold in this country, and I can imagine it would be disturbing for someone who escaped communism in Cuba.
You can go to the highest college in this country and you're going to find a political science, you know, cathedra. And you might see some people, some action in there, yes. I mean, for me, it's very obvious, but they've been doing that all over during the Cold War. And the amazing thing is that it still exists and is stronger. So you saw that everything was going to end with people passing, like Fidel Castro passed a few years ago, but no, the subterranean activity to get people to work for them and to agree with their ideology, it's still going on. And the political results are all over the hemisphere. Just right now, Venezuela had ended this system, not ended because it's still on a transitional phase, but you have Maduro in New York facing a trial. Nicaragua is the one still standing. Cuba is the one still standing. And it was very naive to think that they were not doing anything. They've been very active.
Well, that's interesting that these people still push an economic system and an ideology that is a proven failure.
Yes,
And they still keep pushing it, don't they?
yes, because this ideology counts with uneducated people. And we are not diminishing education for young people in this country, but they don't even are old enough to know and to have had the time to investigate what they're, giving their allegiance to. So you have to go back in time. The Soviet Union, some people have been born in this century, and those are the ones that are pushing for this ideology. They absolutely ignore what it really is or was for countries.
So, given what you know and you've seen things unfold in this country, what would you recommend to parents today with regards to their children, what they should know, and particularly with regard to where they send their kids to school?
I mean, I also have seen society change a lot, and there is not much you can do against what is being told to your child in school. There is not much you can do. You can go there and protest and talk to the principal, but they're going to keep teaching the same class. And your option is to isolate your child from what is, the rest is receiving. So I will say, I don't know what the, investigative agency have been doing in this country for so many years, because this is being always on the making, always. And I don't know if it has been done at the federal level. I don't see the states recognizing federal authority much more anymore. So it's a complicated issue, but it needs to be taken care of.
Well, I think the parents, first of all, need to be educated about what communism is and how bad
Yes.
it is. How can they protect their children if they themselves don't
Exactly.
know? And it's the problem is not knowing and not paying attention to history and what's transpired before us.
It's not,
So many of our men and women in the military died to save this country, and it's a shame that so many people are ignorant of the evils of communism.
yes, but it's not only that, it's also what they've been told time and time again, because we have a very strong media that supports that type of ideology or that type of individual. We have seen the world changing so much that Jews that were the victims less than 100 years ago are now the new fascists. Those are the qualifications you hear and you watch on TV and social media. So it's really an offensive from the communist side and the communist ideology. They are moving everything they have. As I mentioned, the minions, we can seem some type of a joke, but all the pieces of the chess, they are really on a rampage, advancing their agenda in these times. I even recognize that the vocabulary had changed. You never heard 5 years ago words like capitalism, hegemonic, and stuff like that. Those are manual words that the vocabulary had changed. Hegemonic capitalism, totalitarian regime, those type of words that some of those proposed new politicians are expressing in their speeches didn't exist in the American vocabulary 5 years ago, 3 years ago. So that's why I realized that they are really moving people they had worked on.
Well, communism is good at sophistry. They love to twist and turn the meanings of words so that they keep people confused. They try to make them think that all these things are good when they're really evil at their core. Now, with regard to what's going on today. You've seen recently in the elections over the last 2 days, we've had literally, they call themselves socialists, but they're really Marxists. But we have the Democrat Party elected a Marxist basically for governor in Wisconsin. And then El Said, he's another radical socialist, and I'd say that they're not socialists, they're communists. El Said in Michigan. And then, of course, we have Mondami in New York, and there's other places around the country where these people have gained a foothold. What are your thoughts on that?
I saw it coming. It's obvious. For the last 2 years, everything had changed. They are really on the offensive. I don't know if I have the right word. They're really attacking right now. They're moving all the pieces and they are getting results. And I think that people should know that communism doesn't generate wealth; it consumes it. So the money the money to sustain all those dreams of socialism has to come from somewhere.
That's an interesting way. I've never heard it put that way before. So I do know that in my studies, it looks like communism has for decades been infiltrating all of our institutions, including our media.
I would say that it seems like that, yes. But it's to your FBI and such to give proof and affirmation. It looks like it's been a very successful program in a way.
Well, I understand that. Let me ask you this before we start wrapping this up. What kind of a message would you have to our youth today? So you've lived under communism, you escaped from it. For those who think it might be a good thing, you know, the communism always promises free things. What would you say to the youth today?
I would say that they need to go back in history and look for the reason why a system that was in place in last century failed, why it failed, how many deaths it caused, how much inequality it caused, how much suffering, all those. I mean, why is that half of Cuba lives outside the country if it's such a paradise with free health and education? You know, look behind the words, because that's what these people use to make you change your mind, to indoctrinate you, precisely, words.
Yes. If words have no meaning, then there's a problem with communication and you'll fall into that trap. Well, Alina, I know that we're looking forward to having you here in Louisville, Kentucky on August the 26th. And so I'm anxious to see you here, and you're going to be a guest speaker at the Louisville Jefferson County Lincoln Day dinner here. Is that right?
I think so, yes. I'm going to support Maria Rodriguez as a candidate, because if there is someone that knows that what I'm speaking about is one of its victims, and she perfectly knows what she's fighting.
Yes, I've represented many Cubans here in the Louisville metro area. In fact, Kentucky has the largest concentration of Cubans outside of Florida. So I have Cuban friends and also clients in the Cuban community here. So we're very anxious and looking forward to seeing you here on the 26th. And so that's, I'm giving a little plug here for the dinner coming up, but that's August the 26th at 6 p.m. And if anybody's interested in attending, that telephone number is 502-584-7111. So, Alina, I appreciate so much that you've taken the time out of your busy schedule to talk with us. This podcast goes out over the country, And for those who are in Louisville or surrounding areas, if you want to attend and see Alina and be able to meet her and talk with her, just put that on your calendar for August the 26th. So with that, Alina, again, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you on the 26th. And until later, I'm Jack Richardson with Jack's Corner.